Good afternoon. In this video, I want to briefly look again at the issue of slavery and why it's important dealing with the issue of these guys in PBI. They're subtly trying to sneak in the concept that slavery is okay. And they'll even change the King James Bible to make it sound okay. If you look at, here we go, segregation versus integration. On page 42, Ruckman has, the saved man is a slave to Christ even though free. 1 Corinthians 7:20-24. Where does it say that? It doesn't say anything about slavery. You go to his reference Bible. He's got a note in 1 Corinthians 6:20. A Christian is a bondservant of Jesus Christ. See note on Acts 8:27. See also Ephesians 6:9, 1 Corinthians 7:22. None of them say anything about slavery, a Christian being a slave. These guys think when Jesus Christ bought you, he enslaved you. That's how the modern versions read. He's got slavery there. He's got you read bondservant. That's what Breaker began his whole thing with, defending the word slavery. If God wanted to say slavery, he would have called you a bondservant, not servant. But you guys would give Breaker, an out. You don't care. You don't care that he puts all this garbage up and tells you he's the real Bible believer. That's what the Southerners were saying when they defended slavery. They're the real Bible believers. That's what Breaker is telling you, that those who were against slavery were not the real Bible believers. But the Southerners were. Where do you think that comes from? This is a work on the counter-revolution of slavery. The ideology of slavery. And we read here. Page 220. As Preston, a member of South Carolina's seceding delegation at Charleston, proclaimed, slavery is our king, slavery is our truth, slavery is our divine right. Whether most Carolinians realize it or not, the final vindication of slave society was near at hand. Then he had chapter 8, secession. Southern nationalism rests on the vindication of slavery, and the Republican Party mounted the most serious challenge to the progress of slavery. So he wants you to believe that slavery was going to go away. It's not going to go away. Ain't no intention of it going away. Free labor ideology not only condemned human bondage as a relic of barbarism, but viewed the sectional controversy as an irrepressible conflict between slavery and freedom. The dispute over the extension of slavery laid bare the inherently opposing views of society in North and South. The defense of slavery and the anti-democratic values of slave society formed the politics and ideology of secession. That's what secession was rooted in, slavery. And he can put up all the phony books he wants. It was about a tariff. Secession in South Carolina was not the result of merely a momentary and emotional crisis of fear. It was rather the accumulation of an influential political ideology of slavery and separatism. The fact that South Carolina became the first southern state to secede was no accident. The vanguard determination of the state's political elite, the lack of organized opposition, and apparent disunionist majority among the citizenry, tactics of intimidation and terror. There you go. The hopeless apathy of the outnumbered Unionists made the state's secession a relentless juggernaut. Slavery is more a topical issue in the sectional conflict. It was more than a topical issue in the sectional conflict. It lay at the heart of Southern nationalists' understanding of their cause. Slavery is a benevolent and harmonious system that allayed the conflict between capital and labor as a guarantee of social and political stability, as the engine of economic prosperity as a result of allegedly natural racial differences, and as a divinely sanctioned institution comprised pro-slavery dogma in the years preceding the Civil War. Divinely sanctioned institution. You know why they say that? They were reading the Bible literally. That's what Breaker says. That the Unionists weren't reading the Bible literally, and therefore that's why they were against slavery. If you read your Bible literally, you'll be pro-slavery. Don't you understand what the con this guy's trying to pull on you people? Don't you understand what he's saying when he defends the Confederacy? That he's the real Bible believer. When he tells you that Peter Ruckman convinced some guy that the South was right. Because why? What? Because Peter Ruckman's a real Bible believer. Both people were using the Bible. Yeah, you had people who didn't believe the King James Bible, Universalists and Unitarians, but that didn't comprise the majority of the abolitionists. You know, the abolitionists, actually, there were a couple of abolitionists who actually paid to get Jefferson Davis out of prison. Because he was being held prisoner as they thought he was associated with the assassination of Lincoln. It was abolitionists who bailed him out. Oh, you guys, just take in this guy's lies. The whole PBI system is built on this lie, along with this whole faith works system and dispensational. See, they're the real dispensationalists. They're the real Bible believers because they understand you can't interracially marry. Christians can't interracially marry. Even though Ruckman admitted you can't interracially marry, well, we really can't. And of course, the South was right because the Union people weren't reading the Bible correctly. The Southerners were. They were reading it literally, which means that slavery was legitimate. But it's not legitimate now. What happened? Let's see. Post-slavery ideology, or what George Fitchell called Southern thought, achieved what no amount of Northern criticism could. It created a distinct national identity for the South based on its character as a slave society. Let's see. Oscar Libor, writing to his parents in New York, felt that the free North was more alien to him than slave Cuba. If his parents had moved to Cuba, he confessed, although really a foreign country, I would experience less of the national separation being taken place. That was the big thing, slavery. Southern nationalism derived its most powerful ideological impetus from pro-slavery thought. As William Lowens Yancey stated, we have settled for ourselves the question that our slave institutions and the institution resting upon them form the best governmental policy in the world. That ours is the highest degree of civilization, having the most beneficial effect upon society, both moral and political. Let's see. James R. Doolittle, Republican senator from Wisconsin, blamed the Calhoun Revolution or the defense of slavery in the abstract for the Southern demand for the extension of slavery. Oh, then we can expand. Let's see. Let's see here. Let's see. Okay. Bledsoe, who repeated the biblical defense of slavery, attempted to reconcile natural rights theory with slavery. He argued that social contract theorists had erred in thinking that natural liberty was curtailed with the establishment of civil society. Civil law only reinforced natural liberty, which was already based on the allegedly natural differences. Only by challenging the universality of natural rights could Bledsoe make it palatable to slave society. He also sought to develop a pro-slavery reading of the Declaration of Independence, the object of sustained attack by most slavery ideologues. There you go, people. What's going to take to know what this guy's talking you about? There's a reason why he keeps trying to shove it down your throat that the South was right. There's a reason for it. There's a reason why they want to change the King James Bible word servant to a bond servant. It's not to say bond servant. You know, Old Testament, they have the word bondservant. We know what slavery is, a bondservant. Slave is. They don't have the word bondservant. He spent 2 hours trying to defend the word slavery. Going to the Greek. You don't care. None of you care. All you Robert Baker defenders. This whole PBI system is built on this corruption, this lie. It's built on a foundation of lies. A foundation of lies. Dispensational salvation of faith in works. How can God accept anybody's works? And then I got some guy telling me, well, you know, these guys, Lot was saved before the law. Yeah. But read Ruckman. Hear what they say. They don't bring up Lot. Lot didn't have any works at all. How he gets around it, Adam, Noah, and Abraham was saved by grace through faith. That works. According to Ephesians 2:89, according to Ruckman. But you know how he gets to it? He says, well, they had to perfect their faith, though. So they weren't really saved as a salvation event. They were in the progress of getting saved. So they had to do something in order to get saved. Stay saved. Even though Ruckman says he gets saved, but he had to do something. Like Noah had to build the boat, you know. And so they can't explain how Lot didn't do anything and still be saved. But if you give him an illustration as a backslidden Christian who ends up at the judgment seat of Christ, with nothing to show for his life. They're all over the place, people, on this. All over. But they deceive you. Baker's a deceiver. He's trying to lie to you. And there's a reason for it. And he's going to tell you, just like back then, he's going to say, well, we're King James Bible readers, and the South was right, that means, but they weren't really fighting for slavery, and all their literature says they were fighting for slavery. Jefferson Davis said they were fighting for slavery. I'll get the quote from you. As far as the leadership was. You say, the people on the ground were fighting for slavery. See, they'll twist that and say, oh, you know, the soldiers were, you say the soldiers were fighting for slavery. The leadership were fighting for slavery. Based on what they twisted the King James Bible. Which you say they were reading correctly, literally. Justifying slavery. That's their argument. They were the real King James Bible believers. They were the real ones reading the Bible literally, according to Breaker, which allowed them to come to the defense of slavery as a legitimate institution. If you accept the lie, you're going to believe it. Which system are you going to be for? He's for the Confederacy. They went against the Declaration universality of the Declaration of Independence. That all men are created equal. That's a fact. These aren't opinions. This is all in their writings. They said the founders never intended for the Declaration of Independence to apply to all men. That all men were created equal. They said that. They said it was a natural, God-given right for white men to rule black people. Slavery was natural. And therefore they were reading their Bible correctly. So when you read it and you say, oh man, if they read it correctly, then wasn't it right today? See, they lied to you. Well, I'm against slavery now. And, yeah. You would have been against slavery back then, Robert. You foul-mouthed liar. You, Ruckman, and the rest of you bums would not have been against slavery back then. You would not have been against the Jim Crow laws. You can pull that lie off now and sucker your hearers. But had you been back in the South in those days, you would have been for slavery. You would have been preaching from the pulpit that slavery is legitimate, according to the Bible, and that the Yankees, the Union people, Union Baptists, were not reading their Bible correctly. You were the real Bible believer, because you're reading the Bible literally. And that's how you would have come to the defense of slavery. You liar. You liar. If you were back in 1860 and you had a pulpit back then, you would have been preaching in defense of slavery, based on what the King James Bible said according to a literal reading, according to your view, and you would have denounced anybody who was against slavery as reading it, as spiritualizing it. That's the lies you teach. And the same thing with Jim Crow laws of segregation. That's why you get this nonsense. Race mixing. So, we'll stop with this up. I'll be walking any comments. But you guys want to listen to him? If you guys want to listen to him, listen to him. Listen to him as he subtly sneaks in like a serpent. A snake. As he maneuvers and weaves and smiles at you where he does it. Ask him what he would have said in 1860, 1850 as a Baptist in a pulpit in the South. Ask him in Florida. Would have he denounced slavery as an evil? No, he would not have. No, he would not have. Because he doesn't think it's an evil. He's got you got Christians as Christians as being slaves. That's why he tried to defend it as a positive good in that 2-hour video he put up. Now the Greek word is doulos, and slavery is a positive good. What do you think he was doing that for, people? Why do you think he put up a 2-hour video trying to defend slavery as a positive good? But he's against it now. No one wants to be slave. Well, if it's a positive good, what's the, where did Christ ever say we were his slaves? Christ didn't want slaves. Christ wants friends. We're part of his family. He bought us out of slavery. Satan loves slavery. See, they can't accept that. Because that would mean that slavery is a satanic system. And the heritage, oh no, and then they say, oh, my great-great-grandfather, and did he preach against slavery? Oh no. He wouldn't have been allowed to preach from a southern pulpit against slavery. He's got that blog on there, the Confederate Baptist. None of you care. No one cares. It's irrelevant. Well, he's trying to sneak in a lie on you. Sneak in something that he's the real Bible believer and the real Bible defends slavery. That's a positive good. And that's what he would have been preaching in 1860. That's why he holds up a Confederate flag. That's a greater flag than the American flag, people. When any man does that, and holds up an American flag, and says, "See, this is represents slave trading," the South was against importing slaves. They were against importing slaves because they had so many of them. They didn't need any more. They had 3 million of them. 1808, they agreed. That was a compromise with the South because the North basically wanted to end slavery immediately, the importation of slaves immediately. But the South demanded that they increase at least to 1808. So in the Constitution, they don't have any more importation of slaves. The only reason is they don't need it anymore. The numbers were getting them scared. 3 million of them. That's why they need to expand. So remember why this, go to this blog, read it. Why is Civil War still important? Confederate Baptists. The South is right. Christians are really slaves. Slavery is really not bad. They're the real King James Bible believers. They think God is going to it works in their system, in His system. On the faith work system, dispensationalism. And then they've been, people, what are you attacking us for? Okay? So I'll stop with this up. Amen. Thank you.